What's going on, guys? Dan Watson, learningcameras.com, and here I've got the PhotoDiox adapter and the Metabones Mark IV adapter for the Sony a6300. I'm going to test both of these out, and two things I'm looking for in this test. One is whether either of these are going to be good for autofocus performance on this camera, and two, if the Metabones can justify being 4 times more expensive. So these are the two things that we're really going to take a look at. Now, first for the bad news. The bad news is that neither one of these will allow autofocus during video. You're going to get an error. It will not allow you to change any settings. It will not focus at all. So this is only going to be for photo shooters. Now, video shooters, you're still going to have aperture communication and all other electronic communication. So only the AF is not going to work for you. So this is primarily for photo shooters. Now, for the first tracking test, I had my daughter walk towards me and I shot in a very high speed mode to see if it would track with her. And it seemed to be doing a good job at first, but as soon as she began to get a little bit closer, it still looked like it was tracking just fine. However, when we go and look back at the pictures, it definitely was not. I lost focus for pretty much the last half of the images, and this is with the PhotoDiox, so it definitely wasn't doing a great job and as good as I thought it was doing at keeping up with her when she was walking, even though I was getting those green confirmation lights. Again, I repeated this test with the Metabones adapter, and the results were pretty much the same, where it didn't keep up with the last half of the shooting. It seemed to do just fine. I was getting confirmation, it was taking the pictures. I do have it set also to prioritize focus and not speed, and still I was getting confirmation and was focusing, and yet the pictures were out of focus. So that is the part that made me the most angry, is that at least let me know that I'm not in focus. Don't take the picture and act like you're focusing if you are not in focus. So that to me is a false confirmation, and very, very bad, because I don't know that the picture is not in focus until I look at it later. My next test was just to carry out the speed of the autofocus system in general for a still object, and I repeated it. This is with a Canon 70-200 f2.82, and I repeated it at 70 and 200 millimeters. Now, at 70 millimeters, it seemed to work just fine. It was a little slower on the PhotoDiox, but it pulled it off just fine. No issues at all. However, when I looked back at the first set of pictures I had, they were definitely not in focus, and I'm not sure why. The second set turned out just fine. Now, I also repeated this test for the Metabones adapter, and it definitely focused much faster, which was great. However, I did have an issue, and it tried to focus and did not at all on one of the attempts. And now I prefer this to acting like it focused and not focusing. Overall, the Metabone seemed better. However, I did have issues on both adapters when focusing on a still subject that was not that far away. Also, I just wanted to point out that on both of these adapters, the first time I tried it, it actually focused on the tree instead of my subject. And so this is probably due to the camera instead of the adapter, but I just wanted to point that out, that it didn't even recognize the person as the object that it should choose and instead focused on the tree. Overall, these adapters definitely work. It does give you autofocus, and it did work in most scenarios. However, it's just not completely reliable, and it's just not up to the standard that I would expect and want from a camera. If this is the autofocus that we got from the a6300 with Sony lenses, no one would ever accept this from a camera like this. And so I have a hard time accepting it with the adapters. Sure, it allows you to use Canon lenses, but at this point I'd say that even though it does allow it, you're going to want to stick with Sony lenses for pretty much anything that requires autofocus. In this case, the Metabones did work better than the PhotoDiox. Again, I don't know if it was reliable for me to use continually, and so I might even just save my money and buy the PhotoDiox. On the hardware side, I definitely prefer the PhotoDiox with the toolless plate that you can use to remove the bottom of the tripod mount, and on the Metabones it requires tools and a lot of little screws and things like that you're going to lose track of. So definitely on the hardware side, I would go with the PhotoDiox. So the Metabones can allow updates to better autofocus performance in the future. So maybe we're going to see these updates with the a6300 to make it a little bit better, but it was just a little flaky for me at this point in time. So hopefully that helps give you some perspective. If you're looking for autofocus, definitely the Metabones is a better one, but again, I'm not quite sure that these are going to be there yet. However, with the updates, the Metabones might be able to pull it off sometime in the future. Stay tuned, we got a lot more stuff coming on the a6300 and also some new cameras, so definitely stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching.